everybody. I'm David Tennant, the founder of Connect. We are here to start off the Capital Spotlight podcast, our first ever episode. Who knows if it's going to be good? We'll see what you guys think. But we are today talking to Mickey Sundermann of ROKK Solutions. She spent a lot of time on the Hill, a lot of time in campaigns, and now working in PR as well. So we're going to dive into all of that. We're going to learn about the person behind the politics. So when we talk to Mickey, you'll be hearing conversations about boundaries, work-life balance, finding community in DC, which everyone's trying to do. Can be a hard one, but that's why you use Connect. Anyways, tune in for this episode. We're excited to hear what you guys think. Please give us your feedback, but check out this episode with Mickey. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Capital Spotlight podcast. We are here with Mickey Sundermann of ROKK Solutions today. Hello, Mickey.
It's so great to be here. Ready or not, here we come.
Yeah. Thank you for coming in for the inaugural podcast. We'll see how this works out. Could be terrible. Who knows yet?
It'll be great. It'll be great. We'll figure it out together.
But please, let's start off by, would you just mind letting us know a little bit about your history? Where are you from? What'd you do on the Hill? And now what are you doing over at ROKK?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a senior account director at ROKK Solutions. I came to the private sector by way of political communications. I knew I wanted to do it since I was in middle school. So I was one of those really weird kids growing up that was in student government all the way through high school, college, always knew this is what I wanted to do.
Nice.
I started with my senior senator, Senator Grassley, 2 days after I graduated college.
Jeez. You moved like right out here, right?
Yes, I had the job locked in for about a month before I graduated because I was interning for Senator Joni Ernst my last semester of college. Just happenstance, they're like, hey, we have a job in DC, are you interested? It was my dream to do it. So I graduated on a Saturday, flew out here on a Sunday, and started on a Monday with Senator Grassley as a staff assistant, and pretty quickly had told them, hey, I want to do communications.
Nice.
And got an opportunity to do that about 4 months in. And worked my way up through Senator Grassley's office, and a testament to him, staff stays, and they stay a really long time. If you know his vacuum, named Beth, all over his Instagram, that is named after one of his longtime communication staffers. And she was with him for over 20 years.
Got to keep the legacy.
Exactly. And I think that just shows that there's not a lot of upward movement as much as I know, when I left the senator's office, he's like, I want to give you more, but I can't. Yeah. So I asked the chief of staff at the time, should I campaign or should I go to graduate school? And she said, why not get paid to get the same knowledge?
Yeah, for sure.
And so I went and campaigned in Missouri in 2018 and was digital director on the Senate campaign there. That was a crazy experience. I had never volunteered for a campaign or anything. I just picked up my stuff and moved, kind of similar experience, accepted the job, moved out, and started within about 48 hours. That's a little bit of a trend in my career.
Yeah, sounds like it.
But knew I wanted to come back to DC, so did a joint digital and traditional press job back in the Senate. And just realized that digital really wasn't for me. I was missing communications, but the senator I was with at the time was on the Senate Armed Services Committee. And my two grandfathers both served in Vietnam, and so I've always had a lot of admiration for our service members, and then being able to go and tour the military installations in North Dakota with my boss. Just really ignited my passion for that, so had an opportunity to go work on national security matters on the committee side, over across the Hill on the House side. So I did that as the communications lead for 2 committees during the COVID years.
Oh, fun.
And maybe fun, it just wasn't quite what I was hoping for, I think is maybe the best way to describe it, but it was more communications based. And just realized that really is what I want to do. I want to focus on kind of the national security route, defense, traditional communications, and found that opportunity at an agency. Nice. I think as we got through the COVID years and as the world sometimes gets more political, I realized that maybe I didn't have as much passion for it as I thought. Yeah. And so exited out of that, But very quickly got a call from some old colleagues of mine from the Grassley world, and they roped me into his 2022 race as communications director. Nice. And so put a nice, pretty bow on my time directly in politics, starting with the senator, ending with the senator, as the most junior in his official office and as one of the most senior members of his campaign team.
Very cool.
Which was great, and learned so much through that experience. But through this collection of campaign, House, Senate, private, public, I really wanted to use everything in one job. And so the best way to do that in DC is through the public affairs umbrella. And that's how I found ROKK Solutions. I was really just looking for a place where I could use every single one of the skills I had gained along the way and all of that knowledge in one job under one roof. And I had received some advice from a mutual connection of mine that said, go where you want to have fun, like go where you're gonna have fun. Don't put as much pressure on it. And they were the ones that I really clicked with the most and had the best personalities. And they were bipartisan, which I was really itching for. And I've been there for a little over a year and a half now, and I just adore the team. I adore my clients. I love the work I'm doing, and it's very similar to what I was doing on the Hill.
For sure, yeah. I think like in our little bit of experience with ROKK, working with them, like everyone's just so fun. So,
yeah,
a lot of great personalities.
We have a good time. It's definitely, I love the private sector because it really is the work hard, play hard mentality. And I mean, even our partners, they're so accessible. They really emulate their doors are always open, whether you're the most entry associate account executive, whether you're a communications assistant, all the way up to our executive vice presidents. Like They are open and willing to talk to anyone.
That's great. And I'm sure they have so much knowledge. I'm sure a lot of them have similar paths to you or working in true like corporate comms. So it's nice to have that collection of everything together. And on that end, like, so what have you seen as like those true like comm skills that like you've brought over the most to the ROKK side of things, private sector? What meshes, what did you kind of leave behind?
Yeah, I think what's really, really helped, weirdly enough, I think when I went over to ROKK, a couple people were like, wow, you have House and Senate and campaign? Like, that's a lot for being,
And committee.
And committee for being around 30 years old. But I have used every single piece of that. I think politics, unlike other jobs, really are, you move very quickly. I mean, campaign jobs, like each of those jobs were only 6 to 9 month jobs. They were very temporary. The House is every 2 years, and those are very competitive seats, especially when you're on a committee. Power changes, leadership changes, and so being able to get all of those experiences as DC changes every couple years, I've been able to use all of that political knowledge to inform my clients every single day, but then also being able to really specialize in digital for a couple years while it wasn't my passion, and I applaud the people who can do it every single day, being able to really dive into what does campaign digital look like, where you're spending a lot of money. What does official digital look like, where you have literally no budget and you're just doing the organic and earned side of things. Being able to implement all of that for the clients, plus being able to do traditional communications well, has been instrumental for my clients, because you have to pull in, okay, we want to achieve X, and you have to be able to pull in so many different strategies. It can't be cookie cutter because your clients aren't cookie cutter.
Yeah, and I think the Hill is just such a unique place, and if you're going to message towards them, you have to understand how that place works on such a deep level, and not just understand like, oh, well, this is how a bill becomes a law, but like, this is how staffers operate. This is what they read. This is what their like social life looks like. And I think that's what's helped, I think, connect and grow, is that we may not have understood the political process all that well, but we understood like what makes a staffer. And so I think people enjoy that. And so it's a great skill to have and take that to the private sector.
And messaging to different audiences too, right? Like whether you're talking to a staffer from New York or a staffer from Iowa. Like those are very different backgrounds. And so a lot of what we talk about at ROKK is like we take an outside in approach. So when we're working with clients, a lot of what we're doing is we're working in states. So a lot of my work, I'm working with Midwestern states because I grew up in the Midwest. I worked for Midwestern senators.
We'll get to that,
but
absolutely.
we're working with grassroots folks like in Missouri, Nebraska, the Dakotas, and we're implementing campaigns there to influence DC, So like even with Connect, it's like you have to think about how are you talking to your audience? How are you talking to someone from New York? How are you talking to someone from Iowa? How are you talking to a Democrat? How are you talking to a Republican? And sometimes there's great differences, but also sometimes there's a lot of similarities and we don't give people enough credit for that.
Yeah, I feel like, of course, we're going to tie bipartisanship into this, but I think one of the things that people lack is kind of trying to see the life experience from someone else's viewpoint. And what I've noticed, like in my own experience on the Hill, is when I was the most partisan, it was because everyone around me was in that same circle, and I wasn't getting a chance to like understand how someone else thought about something and thought about it differently than I did. And so Matt Bonacorsi, hope you're listening, love you, buddy. But like he was a Democrat friend of mine that once I started to understand like his thought process, it just gave me such a better understanding of how our thoughts were different, how they were the same, but it gave me this ability to understand how someone else thought and appreciate that even if I didn't necessarily agree with it. And so I feel like as a communicator or just like anyone working in politics, how do you like get better at putting on someone else's hat? Because I feel like that's what communicators do so well, but there's comms is involved in every part of the Hill. So how do you do that?
Absolutely. Well, I don't think you can do your job without doing it. The only way you can ever argue your side is by deeply understanding the other side. And so I think if you get, exactly like you said, if you're too involved in your world, like you're just not effective at what you're doing, because how are you ever supposed, a lot of what, if you're trying to argue a point is disproving the other side. And how do you disprove the other side if you don't even know what the other side is? Because you can say, oh, this is what they're saying, but is it actually what they're saying? Is it what social media is saying? Or is it actually what the party leadership is saying? There's a lot of that noise. And so I think one, it's really, really healthy to just take a step out of those environments and realize that at the most basic level, we are all humans, and especially in DC, we're all humans that are trying our best to make the world a better place. For sure. And if you take that approach first and foremost, then you can start to be like, okay, what are we doing and what are they doing to try to get there? I understand there are big differences that people are very much going to disagree with. But I think at the end of the day, like people are good. And so like surround yourself with those people. For sure. My person is Katie Phillips. Hope you're listening. But I've been in Bible study with Katie for 6-7 years, and she's actually a friend from college. We were in student government together. Of course. But Katie's always kind of been the friend in our group that's had different opinions, and that's really opened up the rest of our friend group, even if we do work on the same side of the aisle, to be like, hey, well, I don't agree with that, because we have a variety of level of conservative folks in our friend group, and then we have Katie, who's on the Democrat side. We have friends who are just like, we do not care, but it's just really opened up, like just open conversations about what we believe, whether we agree with it or not. And by setting that tone of like, hey, first and foremost, we love each other. We are good humans who are trying our best. Okay, now let's have a discussion about what we agree or don't agree with. And we're not trying to win the fight. We're merely just trying to have a conversation to inform each other, because I think it's interesting what Katie from California believes, or what Hannah from Texas believes, or what I believe from Iowa, who grew up with Democrat parents. I'm the only Republican in my entire family. So that's also in Iowa nonetheless, and especially how Iowa's changed, and my family's continued to stay Democrats. And so that's a very interesting dynamic. So we all have something to share, but we're all just humans too. And I think sometimes we just overcomplicate that. And I know that's a little rosy, but like why not let Rosie win the day sometimes instead of being so hostile to each other?
Yeah, I think like obviously there's an issue with like conspiratorial minds these days, right? And I can fall into that trap as well. I'm not better than anyone else at it. But I think like the thing I've had to convince myself of is like there aren't all these people that are just like, oh, I'm going to come to DC to screw everybody over.
Yeah.
And like, there are always going to be people that aren't pursuing good, and I think they're the exception to the rule. I don't think that they're like the vast majority of people here. So like, how can we operate under that mindset of like, this person is here to do good? It might be different than what I perceive as good, but like they have like good intentions in their heart and they're trying to make this country a better place. Now we can severely disagree on why or how we make a difference in this country, but I'd love to like get us towards a place of, no, not everyone is out to get you. Most people are just here to do their best.
First and foremost, log off. Like, log off social media. I think social media is so great. Like, it's such a great tool, especially for the kind of work I do, right? Like, if I'm trying to reach a reporter, like, I'm probably going to go to Twitter. If I'm trying to reach grassroots folks, I'm probably going to go to Facebook. But as far as like my day-to-day goes, like, I try to stay off social media because it is the extremes. And a lot of media coverage is the extremes also. Like, there's a lot of, like, Senator Grassley says it a lot. I know there are a lot of other members of Congress who say it too, but like, bipartisanship isn't covered in the media because it's not, there's the phrase
like not sexy.
It's not sexy, or it's not, if it doesn't bleed, it doesn't lead. You know, that's a very common phrase in journalism, but if it doesn't have the controversy, that's like the very fundamentals of journalism. And it's not because they're trying to get a rise out, but it's what is newsy. If there's not something new in the news, then it's not news.
For sure.
And so if something's like, oh, we have this really great kumbaya moment and it passed, like that's, for some of us, yes, that is news, and there may be some local news that gets that picked up, but that's not going to run in the Washington Post or the New York Times unless it's, the bipartisan deal that they were working for on the border crisis, but if it's, something ethanol related, that's not going to get covered a ton. Every once in a while, E15 does with the summertime waivers, but like, that's just not going to lead. And so I think just generally like logging off and spending more time with people in person helps a ton. Like, spend time with your friends face to face, or call your friends back home face to face. Get involved with DC Fray or one of the kickball leagues.
For sure.
Be involved with people, whether it's your people that are near and dear to your heart, or if it's trying to meet new people by doing these different rec leagues. DC, there's so many people here. Like, you will meet different people. Even your best friends are not going to agree with you. Even your bosses. I would venture to say that very, very little people, there has to be such a small percentage that agree 100% with their boss 100% of the time. I have never worked with a boss that I agree with 100% of the time. I deeply admire them and deeply respect them, but that doesn't mean I agree with everything. And so I think that just like actual human connection, even in this modern age, is what really is driving that divide.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like one of the biggest issues there, and at times I experience this on the Hill as well, where a lot of times staffers don't feel comfortable voicing their opinions or like voicing disagreement. And like, there's a certain way to do it, obviously, but whether you're talking to friends, or I think you should be able to voice your concerns to a member of Congress. Like, if you're dedicating your time to like work for them, you should be able to have a free environment to speak your mind and not just completely agree. I have a feeling that's probably an issue more in the House than the Senate. But I've worked in offices where like there is a very wide array of opinions, and like everyone's allowed to kind of just like throw out what they think and not be like criticized for it, but like asked why you believe that, and like kind of fight on that end. And I think that's awesome. I feel like all of our congressional offices should run that way, but I would love to see like growth in the sense of like creating open dialogue, both like inside a congressional office, but also just in a friend group too, of like you can disagree with people. It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. It doesn't mean they're a bad person.
Yeah.
I mean, and there like are things that people say that are totally not okay, right? Like there are things that cross lines, and there are things that are, you know, maybe worth not pursuing friendship over. But I think a lot of what we are currently seeing are not worth it. I think there's a lot of like global issues right now that are, you know, those are discussions that friend groups need to have very seriously. Yeah. But just generally, you know, whether you like this VP choice or this VP choice, and we're going to end friendships over it, it's like, well, like, I don't know.
Not worth it.
It's not worth it. You know, but I think what you're saying too of like being able to have that open dialogue even with your members, like that's being a person and having that human connection. I think a lot of, especially being in comms, like my job is to like die to self in a way. Like my job is to never publicize my opinions. I always viewed like my Twitter was an extension of the office. It was not an extension of my thought. If I wanted my own thoughts, then like then I shouldn't be the spokesperson. And that's unique to the positions that I have held. But I have always had bosses that I've had very free conversations with, or chiefs that I've had very free conversations with. So if I really did disagree, like I remember in 2022, there is, you know, really big breaking news, and I really, really disagreed with what happened, and I was not comfortable with what I needed to say on the record. And so I had a conversation with our campaign manager, and I was like, I don't know what to do, because this is something that's permanent for me. And it was really the first time that I, as a spokesperson, was like having kind of that identity crisis of okay, I need to die to my opinions, but this like morally is really hard. And that was also a big decision point for me, being like, okay, maybe I do need to step out of politics. Like maybe I can't do this anymore, because if I can no longer hold my own opinions in and do that, then I'm no longer serving this person effectively. Yeah. And so at least for the foreseeable future, I probably need to step away if this is the direction the party's going, because I need to defend that if I decide to align with that.
Yeah, that's so hard, especially being on the communications side. I feel like in policy, you can kind of just be in the weeds a little bit more and not have to worry about it as much.
It's not as much your identity.
But I wasn't expecting to go here with this conversation, but this is like a great little topic here of how could like staffers, whether on the Hill or off the Hill, like how can you go to your boss and say, hey, like, I don't agree with this. Like, I feel like you got to be safe enough to do that, especially on like moral things. And if they're like, no, you have to be in lockstep with us or else you're out, like, maybe that's not an environment you want to be in, but there's got to be some like room to voice like your moral concerns.
And I think this has come up a lot in the last year or so, right? Like we've seen a lot of letters coming out from staffers. I do think first and foremost, like public service is a service, and we, like when you take those jobs, like you are taking it to serve that principle. Like we are not the electeds. We are there to serve the electeds. And so I always tell people that are like, oh, should I work on the Hill or shouldn't I? I was like, 100%, if you ever have the opportunity to work on the Hill, take it. But your boss matters. It really, really matters who you work for. Because of reputations, like I think we've seen in the last like 4 to 6 years, like, you know, elected officials' reputations can tank in a second. And along with that also comes the staffers who work for them. And so that it really matters to be choosy in that. But two, that also means choosing people that you truly align with. And there are going to be exceptions to that rule. And I think, you know, usually that's something that's like earned over time. Like if you've been in an office for a month, it's kind of like a friendship too, right?
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
You know, you have to like build up to have that relationship with someone to be like, you know, hey, will you watch my dog or will you watch my cat for a weekend? You're probably not going to do that with someone immediately. So,
or you don't want them like prying into your life and be like, you shouldn't make that decision. You know, like you don't have the authority.
Yeah,
to do
I actually hate your fiance. Like, you know, so like there's a level of relationship that you have to have before you start having those conversations. And I would venture to say, like, usually you're kind of mid to senior level before you really have those. Yeah. However, like, I do think a lot of what's going on now, like, has some really deep religious connotations and centuries long like fights between different religious groups. And so I can understand that folks are going to have incredibly hurt hearts over that. Yeah, for sure. And so I think that is first and foremost like a conversation to go to your chief. I think that's the most appropriate route first of like, hey, I'm having a really hard time with this, and get the chief's opinion first, because that's the most appropriate route. Like the Hill doesn't have HR, right? Like if you had an HR system, like you would go to the HR and talk to them first, but like that's typically more of like the administrative director or the chief before going straight to the member, because that's the route. Like follow your office procedures. Sure. And then if you do have that relationship, I also think that's worth it. But at the end of the day, I think what's missing in this context is like, they are the elected officials. They were the ones that were those were the ones that ran the campaign, won the campaign, and were elected by the people in that district, sure, not the staffers. And I think that is something that's missing. Yeah. And then upon, like, for the staffer, they have to decide, is this someone I want to keep working for? Yeah. Because if they don't change their mind, because they're the one, like, the people put their trust in them, then you need to decide, is this A, someone that I want to continue aligning with? And B, if it's someone I want to continue aligning with, am I okay? You know, they already told me where they're going to stand. Am I okay kind of pushing that down for now? For or sure. Have I gone through all the routes to voice where I'm at? Yeah. It's tough, but it is a public service, you know. Sure. You kind of have to earn, or not, I don't want to say earn, I don't think that's fair, but I think you have to have a deep enough relationship to be able to say like, hey, I cannot. Yeah. Or you say, I cannot, and that means I can no longer go forward with this job. Yeah. And it's tough. It's so tough. But that's kind of where we're at with politics these days. I mean, I really had to face that too. Like, it's like, I'm not interested in 2024 for a variety of reasons. I wish I could be, because I think there's some, you know, like, I'm now at the age where maybe I could start thinking about the White House, or, you know, like I have enough experience where or like maybe I go to a campaign to think about the White House, or, you know, you just dream about it because you have these experiences you could leverage. But I was like, I don't think I can die to self, and I don't think I can truly serve someone effectively because my personal opinions would get in the way.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. So switching topics a little bit. So outside of work, like, I think the people that are most successful in DC, and you're a perfect example of this being here as long as you've been here, is the people that stay are the ones that find community. Mm-hmm. The people that don't are the ones that come here for a year and they're like, this sucks, I'm out of here. And I felt that same experience, and I was about to leave. And then for me, it was finding the right church and finding the right people inside that church who made me feel like I belonged here, mm-hmm, and felt like this town was worth it for me. What are your tips to finding that community here in DC so that you can have like a successful long-term professional role here?
Yeah, well, I think you kind of hit it right on the head. Like, church was key for me as well. Honestly, I had a ton of friends move out here after college, and variety of friendship levels. Like, some of them were the friends that I spent every single day with in college, and some of them were acquaintances that I would see once a year. Yeah. But relying on that network of people that you kind of know or like loosely know, I think is a great place to start. Because if you're feeling that way, they're probably feeling that way. Sure. And so I remember I'm really big into fitness classes. That's also a great thing to do. Like, get involved in a fitness class, find something, you know? Find something to get involved with. There's tons of kickball leagues, there's soccer leagues, there's softball leagues, there's volleyball, any kind of sport, whether you're good, you don't have to be good. But if you want to be good, there's really great leagues for people that played all through middle school, high school, college.
Yeah.
There's also people who just like want to mess around. So there's stuff like that are more like social leagues. But I was at a fitness class and I ran into a girlfriend from college. And she had 2 friends with her, and she was like, oh, these are this friend and this friend. And one of them was Katie that I had like kind of known from college. And she was like, oh, we're like all in Bible study together. Because I was just like, wait, how do you know? And I was like, oh yeah, you and Katie probably know each other through student government. And she's like, oh no, we're actually in Bible study together. Like Katie and I started this Bible study. Some of us go to one church and some of us go to another church and some of us go to like churches all over. And the one I didn't know also worked in the Senate. And so we just grabbed coffee down at Cups one day and talked for like an hour, and just, she's awesome. She's also getting married this year, and so we call each other wedding partners in crime, or we call each other wicks. I don't know, we're weird.
There you go.
But she's now been one of my best friends. All 3 of them have continued to be my best friends for 6-7 years because we ran into each other at fitness class. And they were nice enough to be like, hey, have you met so-and-so and so-and-so?
Yeah.
So get involved in anything, whether it's social, whether it's church, whether it's sports, but then to be a connector. Like if you are hanging out with someone from college and you see someone you kind of know, invite them.
Yeah.
Like make other people feel involved, because that's how all of my friends are. From that group, those 3 people, they introduced me to my maid of honor at my wedding. I just finished up this weekend, finished living with her for 3 years. Nice. She's my maid of honor. She's my best friend. I just adore her. She's amazing in everything I could want to be in a person and more. And it's literally because my friend Adelaide introduced me to these 2 girls, and because she introduced me, I got involved in this, and because I was involved in this, I met her.
Yeah.
And then those people are still to this day like my people.
Yeah, I feel like,
it's so small, but
yeah. And a lot of times too, I feel like you can get stuck in that, well, oh, they already have friends. Like I don't want to like intrude or anything like that. But in reality, like everyone's looking to find good friends.
Yeah.
Especially like the environment that we live in today, the social media environment. People are so lonely. So like you're not the only one who might still be looking for friends and like building your group in DC.
Absolutely.
And maybe this is a guy thing, but I feel like if you like go to a coffee with someone on the hill and you like get along with the guy or whatever, I feel like women are more inclined to be like, oh, let's be friends now, you know? And I feel like guys like won't do that, but like, it's okay. Like if you have someone that you like click with.
Go play basketball.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
It doesn't have to be overly anything. Like you can just have someone that's you go get coffee with. Like I had a couple of friends in the Senate when I first got out here that were like, oh, we have a Republican women's book club. And so I like started going to that and went to that for like a year and a half. And then a bunch of people just started getting like different jobs and kind of moved away. And so we kind of went our different ways, but it was a great way to meet people. And I still talk to those girls, and some of them in 2022, I ended up working with because they worked at different partner organizations. And so it's a great way to expand your network, but yeah, it's kind of not that serious, you know, like just like...
It's not dating, you know?
Yeah, it's not dating. And also like DC is such a transient city. Like a lot of people move to DC for work. A lot of people move to DC alone for work. Like that's the nature of this town. And so like more often than not, people are going to be in the same boat. And if someone's like, no, like, not really interested, or if you don't vibe with someone, that's totally okay. Like you don't have to be friends with everyone, but like you'll be happier if you like have someone to call to go get coffee with, or if you say hi to that person at your fitness class that you see every single day.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we could have a whole conversation about just like making friends in this town and how we take it way too seriously. But Love to wrap up today. The purpose of this podcast is to really just humanize people, who they are outside of politics. So we want to know, who are you outside of your job at ROKK and outside of your like political upbringing?
Yeah, well, I think at this stage in my life, I'm probably more the outside person than
Nice.
I am the career person. And that has been very intentional. And I've had to fight for that really hard.
Yeah.
My current word that I've been speaking over my life is boundaries, in so many ways. So I would say my favorite words for myself right now, I'm a Christian, I'm a fiance, soon to be wife. I'm a new aunt.
There you go.
My
Congrats.
nephew is 2 years old and he is the light of my life. I'm a dog mom and a
What kind of
friend,
dog?
a golden doodle.
Nice.
Yep. And then friend, like my friends really are my family out here. I've lived out here for almost a decade now. And so my friends they are my people. I got so lucky that I met my people later in life,
Yeah.
like my soul people, like I met them all later in life. And I'm just so lucky I did, because they are all right here. Hannah, I want to say my roommate, but not my roommate anymore.
Sad.
But Hannah's just down in Virginia Beach going to law school. And so she's 2.5 hours away. Otherwise, like my closest people are all in DC.
Yeah.
And that's so special. So I'd say those are some of my favorite words, but I also, I'm big into Pilates.
There you
so
go.
I love, I call it my therapy, a couple times a week. I love reading. And honestly, I love watching Bravo TV shows.
Oh, geez. What's your show?
My favorite show is Summer House.
Okay.
But I'm currently watching all of Vanderpump Rules from the
There you
beginning.
go.
I just finished Southern Charm from the beginning.
Simulating content.
Absolutely. So I try just to I'm trying to be more of those things,
Yeah.
more of a present friend, more of a present aunt, more present in reading, trying to take away screen time, with the exception of Bravo, and less the boss, or less the communications person, less the political, whatever that was. Just because you get to the top and it is fun, I'm not gonna lie, but it's not gonna fulfill you.
Yeah, for sure.
It'll never be fulfilling. It's never going to be as great as it is. So I've really been fighting over the last couple of years to find more contentment in the ordinary day.
Yeah.
Which is really hard out here, because
yeah.
all
Things
of us
move so
are very
fast.
type A,
Yeah.
busybodies. We all came out here with a drive and a purpose. But the higher up I got in life, the more I just realized this isn't what I thought it was gonna be.
Yeah.
And what makes me happiest is seeing my nephew, hosting a dinner party, going on walks, going to Pilates in the morning. Tuesday mornings are yacht rock,
There you go.
which I just adore. And so I'm really just trying to find the joy in those and slow down a little bit, because
Yeah.
we're not made to live so stimulated and hyperactive.
For sure. And those are the things you can take with you and to some extent control. Whereas
Yep.
you can't control your work life. Your
Yeah.
boss can say the wrong thing and everything gets
Yeah.
screwed up. So who are you outside of that is so important. And developing an identity as a human being
Yeah.
outside of I
Just
am
be a
a staffer
human.
for X.
Yeah, just be a human. Yeah, I mean, for so long it was, and I mean, I am so proud of the work I did, but for so long my identity was the politics and it was the person. And a lot of that was because I was the spokesperson.
Yeah.
But it is just, I don't want to sound too flippant, but it's not that serious.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it really isn't that serious. What's a lot more serious is life. A lot more serious is your family. A lot more serious is your friends and the life you miss out on.
Yeah.
And there's good sacrifices to be made. Like I said, public service is a public service for a reason. But at the end of the day, you're going to be more sad that you missed out on your niece or nephew's first birthday than going to that campaign stop.
For sure. And I there's this YouTube channel I follow. I think it's like School of Hard Knocks or something. It's this like college kid who's like goes and interviews entrepreneurs. Basically, it's super interesting. But one of the guys he interviewed recently was like, yeah, like I built up my own career, like missed this, missed that. Like I did what I had to do to be successful. And it's like, but I feel like those things can be more important. Like at the end of your life, are you going to look back and be happy that you went to that campaign stop for someone like you don't even like associate with anymore? Like were you present for your kids and for your like family, you know?
Like every single, you know, and this is where social media is good, is like every single, you know, nursing home residents interviewed of like, what do you wish you did more? Entrepreneur, whatever it is. It's never, I wish I would have worked harder.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, and maybe they're just being selective because they're trying to prove a point. Yeah. But like, this is the time now where like, I am very healthy. I can get to my family relatively quickly. Like I have the means to get places. I can go on hikes. Like this is the healthiest I'm ever going to be. Right. And so like, I want to optimize like going and running around with my nephew or going on long walks with my dog. Like there are just things I want to optimize like while I am still young and healthy, because I've learned in the last year like how short and precious life can be. And so like I hate that, you know, kind of had to face tragedy like head on to kind of have that wake up call. But I'm glad I had that. Yeah, I'm glad I have that perspective, because it's like, okay, because that also influences how I am as a boss and a manager now too, because I'm like, I get so on some of my junior staffers, because especially being in the private sector, I'm like, hey, like, if you really want to go work these hours, let me tell you about a couple places around town. But like, you know, some of them live with their significant others, and I was like, hey, like they're relying on you at home. Like they're relying on you to get home and like sit down and have dinner with them. Or like you have a workout class that like, don't waste that $40 to $60, because workout classes are expensive. Like don't do that for this. That's not time sensitive just because you're putting pressure on yourself because someone somewhere decided to.
Yeah, I think that was one of the best moments I had on the Hill. Is I just transitioned into a new office. The previous office I worked in was very much like go, 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 like 9 to 9, never stopped. Yeah. And so at the new office, I was like sending late emails, like doing this, we should tweet this, we should do that at like 7, 8 p.m. And the next day I came into work and my chief just goes, stop. Like, don't do that. Like, go home, enjoy your life, stop doing that. And I think that's a really good thing to facilitate on the Hill. Like,
I can't believe you had that experience on the Hill
awesome.
Either. That is awesome. I want to give that chief a high five.
Yeah, right.
Because like, no one on the Hill gets management training, right? And we should, and really this city does not have management training. And it's crazy. You're thrown into it, but it's so disastrous to not only like the mental psyche that you put on people, but it is so bad for how we develop as humans in our early 20s, that we're like, oh no, we need, like I have bosses in previous jobs that used to call me at 1, 2, 3 a.m. being like, why aren't you working? And those, it's so normal. It's not like a unique experience for me. It is so normal. And it's like, what makes you think you can act that way? There are people that have said things to me in front of me that should never be said in front of anyone ever. And it's just like, not only is that the basic stuff that like you shouldn't do, but also like we just need to learn how to be managers. Like let's take care of people because they're people. Like, oh my gosh, I could just go on a rant for days about how we should be better to especially like junior staffers. Like if you need to work late, like if your team needs to work late, don't make your most junior staffer do it. Like if you're paid 3 times more than a 22-year-old, do it yourself. Like be a servant leader in it. Yes.
Well, part 2 one day.
Part 2 to come where I rant about boundaries. But
well, I think the best way to sum this up is your quote, it's not that serious.
It's not that serious.
So take that with you. Thanks for listening today. Mickey, thanks for coming in.
Thanks so much for having me.
Hey, it's David again. Thank you guys for listening today. We're really excited about this Capital Spotlight podcast and getting it off the ground. So make sure to tune in again. And the easiest way to do that is subscribe to our channels. Check us out on social media at ConnectApp, CNCT, APP, basically everywhere. So find us there, subscribe to our newsletter, and check out our website, capitalconnect with an O.com. Thanks, guys.